This audio presentation of Hi Dad is brought to you by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction. Written by Herbert Ewing Duncan. Executive producers: Scottish Rite Grand Commander James D. Cole, 33rd degree. Grand Master of DeMolay John Sellars, and DeMolay Grand Secretary Stephen E. Crane. Narrated and produced by Matt Bowers, 32nd degree. Consulting producer Dean Alban, 33rd degree. Hi Dad Book, copyright 1981. Audio recordings copyright 2023. All rights reserved. For information on how you can donate to support this audio serial, visit DeMolay.org. Chapter 12. Citizen Extraordinary. Frank Land was now a citizen extraordinary of America. He was known in every state and province and welcomed in cities and communities all across the nation. Shrine temples presented gifts to him on his official visitation, and the Masonic world followed his leadership. For many years, he had spent the greater part of his time away from home, but during this year as imperial potentate, he was seldom in Kansas City. When asked how far he had traveled during the year, he would reply, "As close as I can figure, it must be 100,000 miles." It was a tremendous period in his life, and he took pride in the activity, the honor, and the dedication he so willingly gave. But there was criticism, as there always is to men in positions of prominence. Some said he gave too much to DeMolay and neglected the shrine. Others said he gave too much to the shrine and neglected DeMolay. And then the busy ones, the gossipy ones, would ask about the absence of his wife, especially at formal banquets and parties. They spread their rumors and found no response nor foundation for their tales. There was no doubt in the minds of those with whom he worked and knew him best. They looked up to him for that rare spiritual quality which brought out the best in their own lives. He was able to inspire with a challenge to serve in a cause that made every man young. One of the largest meetings in his honor was in Boston during the Boston Masonic Festival. Here, on a Massachusetts DeMolay night, 20,000 DeMolays and Masons were in attendance, with thousands turned away when the auditorium area was filled to capacity. As his year of shrine leadership came to a close, a tribute was given to him by the members of the Imperial Divan. It was a scroll consisting of a sketch portrait of him with his fez of the 5 stars of an imperial potentate, the signature of each Divan member, and the inscription, "Presented to Frank S. Land, 33rd degree, Imperial Potentate 1954 to 1955, whose constructive administration will long command the devotion rooted deeply in the gratitude of Shrine and Masonic leadership throughout North America, and whose philosophy truly reflects the conscience of the Shrine, with the compliments of his Imperial Divan." On his return to Kansas City following the meeting of the Imperial Council in Chicago, he received word that he had been elected to receive the Scottish Rite Grand Cross of Honor. The office was delighted. Charlie Boyce broke the news by saying, "This is the greatest of honors. He will be the youngest man to ever receive this award. I have checked the records and find that he will be the 3rd living recipient and the 1st Missourian to be so honored. In the long history of the Scottish Rite for the Southern Jurisdiction, a history that covers 154 years, less than 30 Grand Cross awards have been made." The award, a Teutonic cross of gold resting on a wreath of gold leaves with a crimson rose in the center, was presented on May 18, 1956, during the reunion banquet of the Kansas City, Missouri Scottish Rite Bodies by William B. Massey, Sovereign Grand Inspector General in Missouri. Recognition of his life of leadership to the youth of America came to him as if to give meaning to a line from the ritual of the Legion of Honor. "We believe in placing flowers in the hands of the living." 2 universities conferred the honorary degree of Doctor of Humanities upon him. The first was from Indiana Technical College, Fort Wayne, Indiana, with this citation dated November 21, 1954. "In recognition of your contribution as a leader of men and boys, a contribution based on humility, so that all men are your brothers to be served, a contribution based on sincerity, so that the high ideals you speak of are reflected truly in your life, a contribution based on dedication to your work, so that you have given your time, your talents, and indeed much of your personal wealth and life to this humanitarian task. A contribution based on knowledge and understanding of boys, so that you have touched over 1.5 million lives over the world, making better men. Indiana Technical College, upon the approval of its board of directors, is honored to pay tribute to you, and through the authority in it vested by the state of Indiana, confers upon you the degree Doctor of Humanities, honoris causa, with all of the rights, titles, privileges, and obligations appertaining thereto. His commencement address to the graduating class of this great Indiana University stressed the beginning of a life as the most important for. The way you begin is the way you end. He referred to the fast march of civilization, the rapid changing pace of the world, and the necessity of a spiritual sense. It was typical of his thinking and expressed the heart and soul of his philosophy. Standing before the podium and wearing the doctorate robe that had been presented to him, he looked at the young men and women before him and slowly began his speech. I know that all of you look forward to careers and probably feel that the measure of success you attain in life will be gauged by your financial gain. But let me assure you that this goal alone will not give you that inner satisfaction or security that is your God-given heritage. There is no worthwhile possession that does not need to be constantly won and re-won. The moment that you get your alphabet learned, one of the greatest of all intellectual achievements, you possess the whole of the English literature. As soon as you can count, you possess the whole of the equipment of Sir Isaac Newton or an Einstein. But it is quite another matter to possess your possessions. The same thing is true of conscience. It cannot be transmitted from father to son or from mother to daughter. If a person is ever to have a living conscience, he must first possess it himself and then keep it alive and alert in the current of the social streams of his time. We seek to possess ourselves, but this possession is constantly disputed and challenged. All ideals are possessions which belong only to those who win them. Our civilization today is on a fast march. The problems which face you and me today are not those that can be settled by a president, an election, or the passing of laws or legislation for political purposes. The whole universe of man is going through a revolutionary change, and we of this generation are riding the torrent to where we do not know. Our world is changing more rapidly today than it did in the 1,000 years before the Crusades. It is now changing more rapidly in 1 year than it did in the whole century after the American and French revolutions. A new order is aborting. One marvels at the amazing mental mood of man today and his ability to accept the change and maintain his balance in adapting himself to complete new surroundings almost daily. Yes, a whole universe is cracking up and fading away, and a new one is coming into being. Our age has been built upon the quicksands of material things. We have made a fetish of our great wealth, our imposing buildings, our giant plants of industry, and networks of transportation. Yet, with all these resources, we find our civilization crumbling about us. I ask you and myself, can we continue to build our lives upon such foundations, and what is left to build this new civilization that is aborning? I will enumerate some of the things I believe we must build our future on. I cannot pick them up with my hands as I would a piece of paper, a book, or a glass of water. They are imponderable things, like the sunlight. They slip through your fingers, or the air that brushes so close to you, but which you never see. I like to call them the invisible things of life, the things our mothers taught us from the time we first knelt at her knee. Honesty, integrity, truth, beauty, freedom, goodness, clean thinking, love of God, love of home, and love of country. You cannot pick any of these virtues up and hide them from the eyes of men and women. They are free to everyone who accepts them. They are the anchors to which we must tie if we are to live beauteous and righteous lives. By now, you realize that I am not talking about technology to you graduates of this great engineering school. All my life has been devoted to the building and importance of character. I like the motto from one of our great boys' schools, Phillips Andover. In Latin, its literal translation is, "The way you begin is the way you end." The point made, of course, is that an individual may be highly skilled in engineering, chemistry, or any other activity, but unless he or she has behind them that essential ingredient of character, he cannot go anywhere for long. Character is a personal thing, as personal as a toothbrush. As valuable as science has been, it has not yet been able to give us a formula for the evaluation of a human being. Men and women are the product of change, and they reflect the interplay of environment and heredity in a swiftly moving world. Human talents are constantly being reshaped to meet new challenges. Because the quality of men cannot be measured by mathematics or isolated in a test tube, American leaders have learned that in the selection of men and women, they must rely on three stable factors: ability, personality, and character. Ability is a badge not lightly won. It is an attribute gained by personal demonstration. Personality is the light by which ability makes its way. It is a spark engineered by personal contact, and on occasion it may be fanned into that high white flame that we sometimes associate with hypnotic power. Lacking it, a man with ability may linger in obscurity, unsought and untried. But the greatest of all these qualities is character. Ability and personality may open doors, but it is character that keeps them open. Character is a priceless possession, and one that is not built overnight. It is built on the strength of a slow, steady, continuous growth. No matter what you do, you must have character to endure, even as you must have ability and personality to achieve. As you contribute character, it flows back to you in strength and inspiration. Since our character exists only in the estimation of others, it must be constantly guarded and fostered and not allowed to waste itself in thoughtlessness or selfishness or avarice. I ask you to analyze the life of any outstanding leader, an individual whom others follow. You will see that he learned first to serve those who follow him. He respects others as he demands respect for himself. He knows that if he is true to himself, he cannot be false to others. A man with character has gentle dignity, reasonable kindness, strength without hypocrisy, and humble wisdom. A man's greatest asset is his character. In business or in his profession, in politics, or among his friends, it carries with it an obligation. It puts a man on a spot to live up to it. It's hard to earn a reputation for character, and just as hard to keep it. You must try each day to do a lot better than the day before. And keep in mind that a man who has a reputation for character is not excused or forgiven transgressions, as are some lesser folks. One time, in some kind of talk somewhere, I said that in the life of each young person there stretch 100 beckoning paths. The followers of the prophet Muhammad believe that for the individual only one of these can lead him to the proper fulfillment of his destiny. This is what the Mohammedans call al-sirat, or the correct or proper way. They believe that the basic problem of youth is his search for his own al-sirat. Mohammedan philosophers caution the young not to take the path that looked most attractive at first glance, but to test one path after another until they are sure. Then I remember reading once that Benjamin Franklin said in 1772, "We must not in the course of public life expect immediate grateful acknowledgement of our services, but let us persevere through abuse and even injury. The internal satisfaction of a good conscience is always present, and time will do justice in the minds of the people, even of those at present the most prejudiced against us." When Thoreau saw the woodman's axe destroying the forest, he exclaimed, "Thank God they cannot cut down the clouds." There are invisible things, eternal things, that all the powers of men in their fury cannot destroy. To even contemplate these things is to achieve an inward quiet and peace even in this war-torn and topsy-turvy world that you and I now live in. There are indestructible qualities of human spirit. Mother love is immortal, and, though crushed to earth, rises again. Courage, Sacrifice, peace of mind, love, truth, love of home and family, love of country, and love of God all glow with a new light in the midst of the blackouts of hope. Faith gallantly and victoriously rides the whirlwind. No, my friends, you cannot cut down the clouds. The spirit of man cannot be destroyed. The finest things of life are invisible and immortal. They will survive. In one of the letters of Marcus Aurelius when, as a young man, he was traveling, he tells his teacher that as his party went through the gate of the old tower of Anagni, they saw on each side the inscription, "Priest, put on thy sumentum." Marcus inquired and was told that the sumentum was a bit of skin taken from a sacrificed goat or sheep, which the priest put on his cap when he entered the city. It was a badge of distinction. It set the wearer apart from his fellowmen. It was his reminder of his role in life. Today, as you receive your diplomas, you receive your engineering degrees. You are receiving your sumentum, august and exorable. It should remind you always of that day of highest inspiration when you selected your highway of life. Each day as you pass through the gate of the morning and don your sumentum, it should give you new courage, new hope, new faith. Isn't it odd that the invisible things of God seem so very, very far away to many of us when, in reality, we only have to reach out and take Him by the hand? So may I offer this one thought. What doth it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his spiritual sense, loses the narrow path that leads to the footstool of God? A second honorary degree of Doctor of Humanities was awarded to him on June 2, 1957, by Ottawa University of Ottawa, Kansas. The citation noted his many contributions to society by stating, "Because he has made many varied civic, educational, and social contributions, including his services as a member of the American Advisory Council of Yenching University, Peiping, China, and as a member of the National Youth Week Committee for United States, and including his single honor as Imperial Potentate of the Shrine for North America. Because he has sacrificed for others rather than advancing his own gain, and more especially because he has enriched the lives of thousands of young men all over the world, first fatherless, friendless boys, and then boys of all stations of life and diverse environments, enrich them with the solid, homey virtues necessary to the characters of upright men, and with the adventurous spirit of chivalry necessary to the hearts of boys, so that more than 1.5 million men over the world have found in him a real leader. Frank S. Land, Founder and Secretary General of the Order of DeMolay, is presented to you for the honorary degree, Doctor of Humanities. These academic citations contain the basic outlines of the effort Frank Land had given to so many endeavors of merit. He was proud of the honorary doctorates bestowed upon him by 2 great universities, but no one dared to call him Dr. Land. He would have resented the title as applied to himself, considering it pretentious and out of keeping. He much preferred to remain Dad Land, whose public image was that of a humane, compassionate man. But the citations, complete as they were, did not mention the great dream in the creative mind of this man. It was more than a dream, for it was even then taking substance in brick, concrete, and steel. A new headquarters building for DeMolay. One day in the summer of 1956, he called the staff into his office in the old remodeled mansion that had served as DeMolay headquarters since 1928. He was radiant, almost exuberant. "Last night I had the most wonderful experience," he exclaimed. "My prayers have been answered. The Phillips Petroleum Company has agreed to help construct a 4-story modern office building on the site of this building. DeMolay will have the top floor, and Phillips will occupy the balance. Just think, the Order of DeMolay will have its own building. As far as I know, it will be the only young man's fraternal organization in the nation to have its own modern building. I have been praying for this for a long time, and now feel happy and grateful that my prayers have been answered. It is a wonderful experience. I wanted to share it with you." The answer to his prayer did not come in a flash of light, as it did to another on a road to Damascus. It had been a slow, evolving process with its beginning, as with most of DeMolay, in a Scottish Rite temple. Land saw his friend of many years, Ray F. Mosley, watching one of the degrees being conferred and motioned for Mosley to join him. Ray, known as one of the outstanding real estate men of the nation, a lay preacher and the author of several pamphlets and books, had been an outspoken advocate for DeMolay for more than 30 years. The two men made their way to a side room, and Frank explained his reason for calling him. "Ray," he said, "I have a dream I want you to help make come true. We need a new, modern building for DeMolay, and no one knows more about promoting a building than you do, especially when your client has only a dream and no money. Go on and tell me about the dream. You know the world is full of dreams that have become true." "Our property," continued Frank, "is still good. The land is quite valuable, but you have seen what has happened to our neighborhood. It is no longer residential. Office buildings and a hotel have taken the place of the magnificent old homes that once lined Armour Boulevard. I would like to replace our building with a new one, but the only collateral we have is the property itself. Can we do something?" "Perhaps we can," Ray replied, "if we put the pieces together in just the right way. You see, Frank, I have been trying to find a site for the Phillips Petroleum Company of Bartlesville, Oklahoma. They want a building in Kansas City and have options on property at 39th and Baltimore. It is not the right location, and they might be interested in your site." "Now, Ray, I do not want to sell our property," Land interrupted. "Not at all, Frank. What I have in mind is that we work with them, and you will both be better off. Of course, they will need more land for parking. Their men will have to inspect the site and give us some idea of what they will need." The trained real estate mind began to click as Ray continued. "Now, if we could get the proper loan at the proper interest rate—" He paused and continued. "You know, if we could do that and build the building for $15 a square foot, I believe you could have one floor rent-free, construct the building for Phillips, and have enough money to buy the extra land. I'm going to work on it." From this conversation and subsequent meetings with Paul Endicott, President, and Kenneth S. Adams, Board Chairman of the Phillips Petroleum Company, the Supreme Council at its meeting in 1956 at Reno, Nevada, authorized the Secretary General to enter into negotiations with the Phillips Company whereby that company would join with DeMolay in the erection of a 4-story dual-tenancy building on the site of the Supreme Council headquarters in Kansas City, Missouri. On August 22, 1956, the Executive Committee of the Supreme Council met at the Kansas City Club, where a general discussion was held regarding the building and the leasing of all the new building to the Phillips Petroleum Company, except the top floor, which was to be used as headquarters of the International Supreme Council of the Order of DeMolay. A building committee was appointed with full power and authority to act and to form a holding company, to negotiate a lease with the Phillips Company, to arrange for financing, and to make such changes as might be necessary to complete negotiations. The Mellon National Bank of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, made commitment for the loan in the amount of $1,610,000. The cost of the building, complete amortization including interest, taxes, and insurance would be paid in 25 years from rental lease by the Phillips Company for that length of time, and the building would then be owned outright by the Order of DeMolay. In the evening of the day when these final arrangements had been made, Frank Land sat in his office with Malvern Marks, executive officer of the state of Texas, who had been of inestimable value in securing the loan for the building. Both men were proud and happy. The building was to be erected. The high dreams that had at one time seemed so impossible were to come true. Malvern looked about the office, and in a tone of respect for the beauty of the room said, "Frank, I have one request to make." "Just name it, Malvern," replied Frank. "After what you have done for DeMolay, any request you make, if I can do it, is yours. I would like to have this room transferred as it is and made a part of the new building to be your office there as it is here. There is a lot of sentiment in this room, and I would like to see it retained. It is a beautiful room. If it is possible, take the panels, the fireplace, and all the rest into the new home of DeMolay." Work now began in earnest. The executive committee approved the purchase of property across the street from the building site, with a front of 127 feet on 36th Street and 250 feet on Warwick Boulevard. A house was located on the property in the address of 136 East 36th Street. This house was to serve for offices of DeMolay and was later raised to create additional parking for the cars of the employees of the Supreme Council and the Phillips Petroleum Company. In December, the work of demolition of the old building was started. Stone after stone, joist after joist was rapidly removed except for Frank Land's office. This room was carefully taken apart for installation in the new building. Each panel, style, railing, and molding was carefully marked and numbered as if a cathedral was being moved to a new location. The firm of Neville, Sharp, and Simon was employed as architects to design and supervise the construction. One of the larger contractors in the city, the Wynn Center Company, was awarded the contract to erect the building. It stands as a monument to DeMolay and the founder of the order. It is an imposing building, 4 stories of office space, and in addition, a ground level containing a kitchen, cafeteria, mechanical equipment, and storage area. The building is designed to carry an additional floor if such space should be needed. The architecture is clean-cut, simple, and contemporary with beautiful proportions. It faces Warwick Boulevard with gracious setbacks on all sides for adequate planting and landscape. It is basically a rectangle of varied shades of salmon and buff-colored brick with the lower 2 floors, on north and south, projecting as horizontal, parallel wings with window walls containing light blue panels and the ends of Silverdale cut stone. The major dimensions are 68 feet from north to south and 214 feet facing Warwick. In addition, the 2 wings measure 16 feet by 172 feet each. The end walls are without windows, but each has a beautiful vertical brick panel in a concave surface extending from grade to parapet. The new offices were first occupied on March 23, 1958. With the new headquarters building not quite complete, a testimonial dinner was given for Frank Land as the citizen extraordinary on the evening of Saturday, the 26th of January, 1957, at the hour of 7 p.m. in the ballroom of the Hotel Muehlebach in Kansas City. The descriptive designation of citizen extraordinary and the idea of the dinner came from the imaginative thinking of H. Roe Bartle, mayor of Kansas City, who often referred to himself as the titular head of this great metropolis. Large of body and soul, Bartle has a dynamic manner of speech. It reflects, in a rich flow of words, his own dedication to the ideas that have made America great. He has been called that fluent speaker for American democracy. In his earlier years, he had been the Boy Scout executive in Kansas City, and with his love of youth had become a staunch and loyal friend of Frank Land. His letter to a select group of prominent citizens regarding the dinner speaks of his affection. A group of distinguished Kansas Cityans as well as a large number of outstanding leaders on the national horizon have joined together to do honor to one of America's foremost citizens who was proudly a native of Kansas City. For his most excellent participating citizenship and for the great contribution he has made to the youth of our republic and the world, the committee will give leadership to honoring Frank S. Dad Land. This dinner was attended by some 500 friends, including the former President of the United States, Harry S. Truman, and many other local and national civic and Masonic dignitaries. George Jessel, long famous figure of the entertainment world affectionately known as Toastmaster General, served as Toastmaster and introduced those who were to pay tribute to Dad Land, including Frank Carlson, United States Senator from Kansas, who concluded his remarks with, "So I extend congratulations and best wishes to Frank Land, a perfect gentleman who has patience, kindness, generosity, humility, courtesy, unselfishness, good temper, guilelessness, and sincerity." Other speakers gave tribute to him as a citizen of the world whose leadership and example have reached the people of many lands, as one who brought beauty to this city and in doing so brought a lift to the community spirit, and through DeMolay, more than a generation of men have come to know him as Dad Land, their affection spoken in many tongues. We, his friends at home and his friends in other countries, know him as a builder in the highest sense, a builder of manhood. Mayor Bartle said in part, "It was back in 1922 when my pathway of life crossed that of Dad Land. DeMolay was in its infancy, but had already proven its true worth and value as a great and a constructive activity for youth who had character-building potential extraordinary. This night we honor Dad Land because of the record he has written as the founder of DeMolay, and because of the way in which he has dedicated his time, energy, and talents to the constructive aspects of the social structure in his community, in his state, in the nation, and throughout the world." Frank Land could have been a leader in any field of endeavor to which he might have given himself. Political leaders have urged him time and again to offer himself as a candidate for governor. If he had nodded his head, he could have been the chief executive of this great state. Many leaders of industry have invited him to have a part in the development of their corporate bodies. With great consistency, he has turned a deaf ear. Only when youth was involved would Frank Land listen to the opportunity for service. Frank Land is building, in my judgment, for the eternity of tomorrow as he has written his biography in the flesh and blood of our land, the world's greatest asset, the youth of today, the men of tomorrow. A bronze bust of Dad Land had been made by Julius Schmidt, renowned sculptor. It was presented to Dad as a climax to the dinner by the donors: Benjamin C. Adams, Charles L. Aylward, Dr. Graham Asher, J. C. Higdon, John G. Madden, John P. Mullane, Ray W. Niles, Richard R. Riss, Roy A. Roberts, Arthur Walstead. Land commented that this night is for me to ever remember. I do not deserve this tribute, but it makes my heart glow to realize that each of you has had a conspicuous part in this undertaking. Dr. A. F. Schopper, prominent dentist in Kansas City, had served as secretary for the Testimonial Dinner Committee and wrote to Frank on January 28th. "Dear Dad Land, there is no one who is as deserving as you to be recognized as the most wonderful man and leader. All the services you have rendered humanity are not known, since so many of your good deeds are hidden in the crevices of the human monument you have built and the bloodstream of many people, young and old. The millions of boys you have so wonderfully led since 1919 through the channels of honesty, integrity, and good clean living have taken their place in society and today are our American leaders in patriotism and clean and just government. Without you, Dad, this country could and would be in the same terrible condition as many countries of the world today. The good Lord has been wonderful to the people of this country, and particularly the people of this community, by having given us Frank Land. Thank God he has watched over you and given you strength to carry out his wishes. May he see fit to preserve you for so many more years to protect this turbulent world. The auspicious ceremony given in your honor was only a millionth part of the just expression you should have. Mrs. Schopper and I enjoyed the occasion immensely and feel proud to have had the privilege of being among those present. It was lovely in our opinion and beautifully conducted. I am sure, Dad, you have a nook in everybody's heart you have met in your life. May God keep you and bless you and give you strength to continue to mold the best out of humanity. With my daily blessing and sincere appreciation and deepest love and wishing you health and happiness, I am faithfully yours, Champ." Frank Land replied to this letter: "My dear Champ, thanks so much for your very gracious letter of the 28th. You are prejudiced. I would not be trustful if I did not tell you that it affected me very much. I also must thank you for the part you played in making Saturday night such a memorable occasion. With all of your professional and civic duties, I am bewildered that you were able to give so much time to the planning and attention that was evidenced upon your part. For all of these many kindnesses of yours and tolerance, I humbly thank you. You are my friend, I know it, and I glow in it. I hope that one of these days I shall be able to reciprocate. With word of deep personal regard and affection, I am cordially, Dad Land had said repeatedly, "I am not interested in public office for myself. My answer to the call of citizenship is to make good citizens of the young men who will, in time, take over these offices and our society." Disregarding this established policy, when he was asked to stand as a candidate for a vacant position on the Board of Education of Kansas City, he consented. This to him was different. He had been a strong advocate of the public schools and considered this an opportunity to help in the important phases of a changing educational pattern. He was elected and sworn into office with two other new members of the board, Mrs. Tom J. Stubbs and Mrs. James A. Reed, on November 6, 1958, in a service of induction conducted by Judge Tom J. Stubbs of the Jackson County Court. Following the induction service, the entire board held a closed session to elect a new president. Two men were nominated for the office, Harry C. Clark and Wentworth E. Griffin. The vote was deadlocked on each of 3 ballots, and then the board members decided to open the session to the public and conduct the regular business on the agenda. Land found himself in a most undesirable position during the election. Fixed on the horns of a dilemma with both points being good, he turned to Mrs. Stubbs with his problem. "Helen," he said, "we have known each other for a long, long time. I remember you when you were the sweetheart of DeMolay. You can understand my position. Both Harry and Wentworth were active DeMolays. They are my boys, and I did not vote because I cannot choose one over the other." The next election was held 3 months later, and the dilemma of Frank Land was solved. His boys took care of the situation by nominating him for president, and from this nomination he was elected within 5 minutes. Wentworth E. Griffin was then elected vice president. The office of president of the Board of Education carried a heavy burden of obligation, for the schools were assuming new responsibilities in areas of health, emotional maturity, social adjustment, and counseling and guidance for careers, coming as a result of the wishes of the public. Curriculum also was being reappraised to be sure it was the best to achieve the aims of education. Here was a vivid illustration expressing the truth of the lifelong philosophy of Frank Land. The truth that a man can raise himself by his own bootstraps, by his own endeavor. The books he had read in his youth of the poor boy growing rich, the uneducated boy by continuous reading and studying became educated. The conscientious boy mounting the ladder of success had become real. Frank Land, who at the age of 17 found it necessary to drop out of school during his junior year of high school, by his own accomplishment had secured both education and recognition, and was now president of the Board of Education of the school system under which, 50 years before, he had been a student.